it is so great to be back talking with Jeff from Legion M Entertainment. Jeff
Woohoo!
and I are old friends. We've worked together on a couple different things. You gave me the opportunity that I've been like with my bucket list to hang out with William Shatner for several hours and like just chill and drink single malt scotches with him. That was wonderful.
That's awesome. I remember that well. I remember you holding the camera for the interview, the live stream that we did with them in the before the party.
Yes, that was just a good time, and just we've had a couple projects that we've worked together on, and now your company Legion M is promoting a new project you're involved in, which is the film Nimrods, which
hmm
also feels kind of personal to me because it's like I listened to Dookie like crazy, like everybody else did, and then eventually Nimrod. Uh, but Dookie, that was the big one, right?
That's
And
right.
this
No, that's kind of where it all started, where they blew up.
and this is kind of the Green Day's rock and roll high school,
Yeah,
you know?
no, it's so the movie is amazing, first of all. It's really fun. But do you know the log line? Do you want me to pitch the movie?
I do know it, but you're the guy who should pitch it.
All right. Well, so it centers it's a fictional story, first of all. It centers on three high school kids in a punk rock band, and they get pranked by an older brother that manages to convince them that if they can drive across the country and get to the Palladium by New Year's Eve, their band's going to get to open for Green Day. And it's a prank. The kids fall for it, and hilarity and mayhem ensues. And so it's got an amazing cast with Mason Thames and McKenna Grace, and then there's a huge supporting cast which includes Jenna Fisher and Fred Armisen and
Yeah.
Bobby Lee and Angela Kinsey and a whole bunch of great folks.
Sean Gunn.
Yes, yeah, but it's
I
it's
love Sean Gunn.
and Mark Ruffalo's son, I can't remember his first name right now, who I'd
Oh,
never seen before, but who's awesome in
Keen
the movie.
Keen Ruffalo. I didn't even
Yes.
know Mark had a son, but hopefully he is a chip off the old block.
No, he's awesome in it. But one of the things that makes the movie really fun, aside from the cast, and it's all driven by a great soundtrack, which includes a lot of Green Day music. But the movie is actually inspired by a lot of the events that happened to Green Day when they were living in a van, in the Dookie era. And so
Right.
it's really, I think it just adds kind of a whole other layer to it, right? It's not a biopic at all. It's a complete fictional story and is very entertaining, but it also has some really cool meta elements to it.
You've also got a Vulcan on your cast, and that makes me happy. Jolene Blalock, who played T-Paul on Star Trek Enterprise.
I did not know that. Oh my God, that's hilarious.
Yeah,
That's good to know. I'll have to include that in future interviews.
she generally shows up on hottest chicks on Star Trek ever lists because
Oh
she's
my
beautiful.
God.
She's just beautiful and a great actress. So,
That's awesome. That's awesome.
but the way in which you're involved here, of course, is through Legion M Entertainment, and so I know that you want to tell people a little bit more about that specifically because Legion M isn't just a regular like company out in Hollywood. It's sort of like a you can buy stock in a film. You yourself can become involved and become a producer on films, which is very exciting to a lot of people. Like, hey, well, how do I would like to be part of the system. How do I do that? So, and what is this? This is something that they can do that with?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Legion M is the world's first fan-owned movie studio. We were literally founded on the idea that a movie studio owned by a large community of fans has competitive advantages. And so that's from day one. It's been over 10 years now. We've been building, we've got over 60,000 investors, and we've gone from literally when we founded the company, it was just an idea. And we started off by making small investments in other people's movies. to the point today where we're completely financing, developing, producing, and releasing movies of our own. And so, this particular movie, we're partnering with Inaugural Entertainment, who's the distributor, and Live Nation Studios, who's the producer, and Green Day, who also helped produce the movie, to release it theatrically. And we just couldn't be more excited about it. And so, if you go invest in Legion M, if you're an investor in Legion M, you're an investor in Nimrods, because Legion M has a stake in this. We're putting money into it. We're putting effort and elbow grease into it, and then we basically get money back. A portion of all the money that comes back on this movie comes to Legion M. And so it's, we tell people it's kind of like if you could go back and invest in Walt Disney Studios in the early days, right? It's like, you're not investing directly in Snow White, the movie, but you're investing in the studio that has a stake in Snow White. And, that's kind of the distinction. But the other thing is, and this is brand new, just a couple months old, is we are allowing people to invest in the Legion M Film Fund, which is a completely new way for people to invest in movies. When you say, hey, do you want to invest in movies? Most people think in investing in production, which is the lights, the camera, and
Mhm.
hiring the actors and making a movie. But there's a whole other side to the industry, which is releasing a movie. And there are distributors, there's companies, that go out, big studios, including, A24 and Neon and distributors that'll go out and acquire films at a film festival and then release them. And when you invest in that part of the business, it's a completely different investment dynamic, right? Because when you invest in making a movie, those are very high risk, because most
Mhm.
independent films don't make their money back. Um, when you invest in the distribution of a movie, it's a much more conservative sort of bet, because at that point, a lot of the risk is gone. The movie is done. You know that it's good. You know that it's getting distribution. And so it's those deals are structured. So it's what's called last money in, first money out. You're one of the last people to put money into the film. And then
Mhm.
once that film releases, you are the first person to get money out of that film. And so, Legion M started this thing called the Legion M Film Fund, where we pull money from individual investors and then we go and we make investments. And Nimrods is one of the very first ones. And so we're putting, people can invest in it now. The movie's going to come out in August. And then, we'll get the money that comes back in theatrical will go until those people get a return. And if it's not enough in theatrical, then they'll get the money from VOD. And if it's not enough from VOD, then they'll get the money from streaming. You're literally first in line until you've been paid back and you've got your return on it. And, the whole fund is structured so that as the money gets paid back into the fund, it automatically rolls into whatever the next film that Legion M is doing.
So with distribution, you're paying for distribution, is this like you're doing things like paying local representative companies to market the film to their regions and make sure that it's getting coverage from critic and screenings for the public and things like that so that you can get the word out there?
Yeah, it's everything. It's funny. It's called P&A marketing generally, and P&A stands for prints and advertising.
Mhm.
So it's an old term. Prints was back when they needed to make prints, like literal reels of film, so that they could ship it. And so if you think back in those days, if you had to a movie, which I don't know how many reels a movie is, you probably know better than I do, but if you had to,
It depends on the movie.
well, if you had to create thousands of copies of these reels of films and ship them all across the country so that you could be in thousands of movie theaters, that was really expensive. You would need
Yeah.
millions of dollars literally just to get the movie to the theater. And in 2026, that's not really an issue anymore. There still are fees because of the way the DRM and the The way they generally ship hard drives is kind of the one of the ways to do it. But it's like, so it'll cost you maybe as a distributor 50 or $100 to get your movie into a theater. So it pays for that because if you multiply that times 4,000 theaters, like that's a sum of it all by itself. But in addition, more importantly, it pays for the marketing. So
Yeah.
that means cutting a trailer, coming up with the key art, the poster, producing the posters, shipping the posters all over, paying people to ensure that the posters actually get hung in theaters. Facebook marketing, television marketing, influencers, like everything that you can imagine, stunts, going to Comic-Con and doing big events and all that sort of
Hmm.
stuff. And so that's basically what you're investing in. And so that's something that exists. Most every film that you see that gets a big release has P&A marketing. And if it's almost always, it's paid by third parties. Like even at the studio level, they'll bring in outside investors to finance that. And so this is literally P&A investing is a professional grade investment that before just regular people didn't have access to. And so for Legion M, we saw this as two things. First of all, it's an opportunity to open the gates of Hollywood and allow people to participate in this part of the industry that is for previously off limits, right? You can make investments. You don't have to be these super high risk investments where there's very little chance that you're going to get your money back, and you're hoping for a hit, but if you don't get a hit, you're kind of underwater, and so it opens the gates to people to get to these more conservative but highly generally reliable investments. But also for Legion M, it is a huge strategic value for us because when we're ready to partner with a film or attach to a film, or when we want to release our own films, if we've got this pool of money from our community so that we don't have to go out to professional third party investors and get money from them,
Hmm.
it makes us stronger. It allows us to level up to bigger and bigger releases. And it's that same mentality that drives everything that Legion M does, which is like, if you need $2 million or $4 million in marketing money, and you've got two options. One is you can take it from an investor that is a guy that has a lot of money, right? Or a small firm. Or you can take it from thousands or tens of thousands of fans. Like, of course, you're going to take it from the fans. Like, it's a complete no-brainer. And so
Hmm.
it's what it makes us attractive to these other people, like in this case, Inaugural, that's releasing Nimrods.
So this, as you said, it's been upgrading Legion M. I've watched it over the years build with the profile of films. Most recently, you did Fackham Hall. We reviewed that here on One of Us, and that was great. I was like, well, this is we're bringing the old Zucker Brothers style movies back. They're doing it right. It's not like that period when they were making like disaster movie and epic movie with these terribly written, we don't know how to write this and we're not really trying satires. Y'all were like, oh, we're actually trying to do one like in the classic sense. And I was like, I enjoyed the hell out of that. And apparently a lot of other people did too. That was much seen, as was a lot of kudos for your Star Trek William Shatner a documentary film, sort of like focusing on him reflecting back on his life and looking at the oncoming end of his life that was actually moved me to tears watching it at South by Southwest. I thought it was just beautiful. Not just because I knew I had just hung out with William Shatner for a couple hours, although that also had me feeling a little verklempt. But you've been doing this for a while. This is no fly-by-night new company. Legion M is established force in the entertainment industry, and even now you're expanding to more stuff. I remember not that long ago you added where people can sort of become like on the field reps for films by going to festivals and writing in an app what they think about the movies they saw there. If there was stuff that you really loved and you're like, it doesn't have distribution, I want someone to pick it up. Legion M was one of those ways to help those films get picked up is by doing that, going on that Legion M app and saying, please look at this film.
No, 100%. And for us, again, it really is two reasons that we do that. Number one, the shareholders own the studio. So Paul and I literally report to all of the fans that own the studio. And so we are constantly coming up with tools and games that allow us to poll our community. Things like Impulse and Film Scouts, the one that you're talking about, where we go to film festivals and people rate and evaluate them, and ways that allow us to allow our community to express these are the projects that we should do. But the other reason is that it's not just that we have an obligation to those people. We think it's a huge opportunity because collectively we've got over 60,000 investors in our community. And I can tell you without a doubt, the collective wisdom and enthusiasm and passion and experience of 60,000 people is way smarter than Paul and Jeff. I mean, especially Paul and Jeff, right? And especially Paul, but I got to get
He's
my
not going to see this. He's
I got
not
to
going to
get
see.
my digs in on my co-founder when he's not here. But no, but honestly, we believe that by harnessing the power, the wisdom of the crowd, it allows us to make better decisions for the company, which
Mhm.
benefits all of the shareholders of the company. So it's just one of those, I think, magical things and competitive advantages that a fan-owned studio has.
By the way, that's not a screen used prop Captain America shield behind you, is it?
No, it's not a screen used prop, but it is autographed by the one and
Oh,
only Stan Lee as well as Kevin Smith. We got this
wow.
the night that we did a VR interview at Stan Lee's house, probably 2 years before he passed away. It was one of the early projects that we did back when we were just starting up Legion M.
So tell us a little bit more first off about Nimrods and how people, what's the timing look like for people to get involved in this? What do they have to do if they say, hey, this looks great, which by the way, it does. It looks like totally my kind of movie. What do they have to do to get involved?
So it's real easy. You can just go to legionm.com. And if you want to, like I said, you can invest in Legion M as a studio. If you want a high risk swing for the fences sort of investment, right? If you want to go back in time, would you rather invest in Walt Disney Studios or would you rather invest in Snow White? And like I said, they're two completely different propositions. If you want to invest in Legion M, we tell people up front, look, like we're a startup company. Startups are high risk. We're in entertainment, which I mean is total double jeopardy, especially now. It's 2026. Everything is changing. And so, you should never invest more than you can afford to lose. And, but if you want to swing for the fences, the startups that go on and succeed can change the world. And Walt Disney faced long odds when he was starting Disney, and Mark Zuckerberg faced the same odds when he was starting Facebook. And so,
Mm.
that's the startup proposition. It's like high risk, high reward. And if you invest in Legion M, then you've got a stake in Nimrods, but you also have a stake in every other project that Legion M is doing. The other
I would
thing,
like to get a
though,
stake in when you start a theme park, a Legion M theme park as
yes.
well. If we're
Well,
talking the
that
Disney
yeah,
thing.
yeah. That's the next two or three steps in our world domination plan. Um, but the other way, if you're more interested in kind of a slow and steady wins the race sort of mentality, which a lot of people are, you can go and invest in the film fund. And we'll tell you again, you shouldn't invest any more than you can afford to lose just because, I mean, these things are all new and they're volatile. But I mean, that goes for any investment. Like you shouldn't go out and buy a stock in a company unless you're, unless you're willing to lose it. But the film fund is designed to be conservative. It focuses on last money in, first money out. The returns for each of these individual investments is capped at like, it's 15% for Nimrods. So you're going to put in your money. And if the movie does well, you're going to get 15% back in the first 6 months. And if it does a little worse, it might take a year. And if it does bad, it might take 2 years. And if it does really, really bad, it could take 5 years or something like that. But it tends to be that's the sort of risk. It's not like, oh, am I ever going to get my money back? It's more like, how long is it going to take you to get your money back? Because, like I said, you are first in line to get paid. And so, and then the money, when it comes in, it automatically rolls over to the next film. And so, it's a good, if Legion M is a swing for the fences, the film fund is about trying to string together singles and doubles that add up to wins over time. And so you've got kind of an either or sort of opportunity depending on what you're interested. But in both cases, the minimum investment is just $100. So it's an easy thing to come in and just play along and be a part of it and have some fun. Enjoy the emotional rewards that come from being a studio owner and having a voice in deciding what gets made, right? Change yourself from a consumer of movies to a producer of movies and a studio owner that's responsible, and can potentially, if we're successful, make money from it.
Yeah, and I would say that the market for indie films right now is on the pendulum is swinging back on the upswing because I think audiences have been, rightfully bored and kind of sick of a lot of the big studio content, which is just the same crap over and over again. And we're seeing more and more over the last couple of years, little tiny films and brand new directors suddenly popping off into the stratosphere because audiences react. They see people talking about stuff on social media. They see stuff through companies like Legion M, and they react to it. Like, I mean, a good case in point is Obsession, the new Curry Barker horror film, which is doing gangbusters business. And believe me, when you see this, it's a tiny, tiny little film, and yet audiences have really responded and gone crazy for it. And that's the thing, you never know what's going to happen. Let's not forget the biggest return on money ever from a film was the Blair Witch Project, which means hundreds of millions of dollars on I don't even remember what the budget was, like 100 grand or something.
Yeah, something like that. No, you're totally right. I'm so happy that Obsession is popping the way that it is. It's funny, Paul and I saw that movie at TIFF and we were immediately interested. We're like, "Oh my God, this is a total Legion of movie. This is awesome." And then the next morning we read that Focus had acquired it for 15 million. And so, for us like, okay, that's out of our ballpark today. But again, that's why we're building this film fund, is that so that we can grow the fund over time and that
Mm.
we will have this strategic advantage that allows us to level up into bigger and bigger projects. And I think
Yeah.
that, I mean, you're totally right about the major studios. I mean, one of the fundamental challenges of the industry is that when you write big checks for movies, you need insurance that people are going to come out. And you need to be sure because otherwise you're going to get fired, right? And you're going to be looking for a job. And so as a result, the studios tend to be very risk averse. And the best way that they've found to combat that risk is existing IP and sequels and reboots and action that appeals to everybody and can uh, uh, sell worldwide, right? Like a lot of the stuff that is successful worldwide is stuff that's kind of universal, right? Like humor isn't culturally the same in every country. Um, um, sorry, like romance, stuff like that. There's different cultural norms for how that travels. But bullets and explosions, yeah, like everybody gets that. Horror, I think, is actually pretty universal because everybody, fear is something that's universal. But
Mhm.
it really just causes, I think, and I know a lot of people think, would characterize as an over reliance on sequels and reboots and that sort of stuff. And it's just like it's unfortunate. That's kind of where we are today. But Legion M, like we want to be the antidote to that. The whole idea that you've got a studio that's owned by a large audience. Right. The reason why Fast and Furious 27 is going to come out someday is because there's a group of people that are going to come out and see it no matter what, right? Because those characters and that IP is established and there's people that love it. And our thesis with Legion M is that if we can build a studio that has a community of our own, so they're paying attention to the stuff that we're doing, then you don't need to rely as much on pre-existing IP because we've got a community of people that are going to support any movie that we release. And so it gives us more latitude to work with independent creators and to try and create new franchises instead of just milk the old ones.
Yeah, which desperately needs to be done. And like I said, I think audiences are looking for that. It seems to show in the reactions to, I mean, just the fact, even though Sinners was released by a big company eventually, you know how hard it was for that to get made or released at all? Like nobody wanted to actually do it because it was so not connected to anything. And then it made a gajillion dollars because audiences want something different. They're like, please show us something we haven't seen. And, this is kind of what you guys do. I mean, Nimrods looks like that sort of thing, and it's got star power for sure. Like it's there. There's a lot of big names in it. And as well, come on, who doesn't love Green Day? You know?
You know
Even
what,
though
you're from your lips to God's ears, Chris, because this is you're preaching to the choir here.
it's funny, I was doing some research on it, and I did not realize that the song, oh my goodness, I'm forgetting the name of it. There's a song that's on Nimrod, and I always thought it was on Green Day. It's like that acoustic song that plays on everything. You know what I'm talking
Oh
about?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
The
yeah.
time of your life.
Yes.
Yeah. So I always just called it that song from the episode after the last episode of Seinfeld. But that made me tear up because they played it all over all the best scenes of Seinfeld, and I was like, oh, this song will always be with
That
Seinfeld
is
now.
one thing that I think was I don't know if it was intentional, so you would call it genius on Green Day's part or lucky or whatever it is, but that song is probably the soundtrack to like 25% of every graduation ceremony slideshow. And it is, I think, keeps them front and center with generation after generation after generation of people. Because one of the things that I've learned is that in going through this process is that even though Green Day is like our age, their fan base is all over the map. They're not one of
Mhm.
those bands where, oh yeah, they're really popular with the older generations and the kids don't know who they are. A lot of the kids are they're just as popular. When you go to a Green Day concert, it's the entire spectrum of age ranges. And so and this movie is great because Mason Thames and McKenna Grace and all of the cast, they're very all of the principal cast, I should say,
Mhm.
are young and hip and cool, and I think will really just help Green Day continue to reintroduce themselves over and over to a whole new generation of viewers.
And your main star, Mason Thames, has worked extensively with my old roommate, a good friend of mine, C. Robert Cargill, who wrote the Black
Oh,
Phone movies because he plays the lead in
wow.
those. And he always says great stuff about him. He's like, he's just a great kid. He'd love to keep working with him.
That
Like,
is
thinks he's
really
a
cool.
terrific actor. And I
That's
have enjoyed his
fantastic.
work as well. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, I'm very excited for this. And I think that, like, they always say vote with your dollars. Well, you can do that even before the ticket booth. You can do that at Legion M, like with deciding what movies even you get to get made and get distributed in the first place. Go past the ticket booth and make those decisions on a producer level. Then you can do that without having to your degree from UCLA or NYU. You can do it right through
And
this.
you can do it from anywhere, right? I mean, that's one of it's like the Film Scout is a really interesting program because we touched on it earlier. Like it's a tool that we use to help us navigate film festivals. You go to South by Southwest or Sundance or TIFF or one of these things, and there's 100 or more films that are playing, and even figuring out what am I going to watch is a nearly impossible task because all of these movies are brand new for the most part. And so there's not a lot of signals that you have to rely on it. You can usually read like a 2 or 3 sentence log line and you can see who's in it and who directed it and who wrote it, and that's it. And so how do you know that Obsession is like, oh my gosh, that's an amazing movie? And
Mhm.
so we created this game that allows everybody to act as a film scout and to review this information. And we ask you a couple questions. First of all, we ask you to rate a movie from 1 to 5 as far as how interested you are you in seeing it based on the information. Then we
Mhm.
present a second movie. These are both random, so everybody's getting different matchups. And we ask you to rate that one from 1 to 5. And then we say, okay, if they were playing at the same time, which one would you go to see? Right. So you got to choose which one's better. And more importantly, or just as importantly, how do you think everybody else is going to answer that question? And so the first questions is data, right? Your opinion is exactly as valuable as my opinion is exactly as valuable as anybody else's. And so, like, that is what we use to provide data that allows us to say, like, okay, of the 150 films playing at this festival, these are the 20 that people seem to like the recipe, like the high level information, which, to be honest, those are the exact same signals that you use when you're thumbing through Netflix trying to figure out what you're going to watch on a Friday night. Who's in it? What does the cover art look like? What's the 2 sentence log line? Like that's it's a really meaningful signal when it comes to releasing a movie. But that last question, how do you think everybody else is going to answer this? That's a prediction that you're making that we can grade you on. And we can see how good of a film scout you are at predicting what other people will think compared to everybody else playing the game. And so the idea is, well, so at the end of the festival, we release a leaderboard that shows you exactly how you stack up. And we invite the top like 10 or 15% to join our Elite Scout program. And so these are people that have demonstrated an ability to predict what the larger group will think. So that if we ever have an opportunity that, like, we can't share this movie with thousands of people, but we can share it with 5 people, we can go out to these film scouts. And so part of the thesis of it is that everybody has an opinion. Some people are better at predicting and having their finger on the pulse. And maybe, just maybe, the LeBron James of film scouts works at a convenience store in Nebraska and just has never been to Hollywood, has never had a chance to go to Hollywood. But if they had been born in Hollywood, they would be heading up a studio right now. Right. And so the idea that we can use this program to, again, democratize access, to open the gates of Hollywood, to make smarter decisions, and to find the people like that, I think is just really what Legion M is all about.
Yeah, no, I think that sums it up really, really well. For the record, when I saw Obsession, I walked out and said, if the distributor knows what they're doing, they're going to market this in a way that it makes the most money of any horror movie, much less a lot of other movies this year, because it's the best horror film I had seen in probably at least 5 years, even more so than like Weapons and stuff. I was like,
Yeah.
this is a remarkable work of distressing art. And there's so much stuff out there like that never gets discovered because people the companies that get it, they don't know how to handle it. They don't know how to push it. There's no money behind pushing it to put it out there in front of people's eyes.
Oh,
And that's
I'll tell you, as someone that does film distribution, it's really challenging. I mean, first of
mm,
all, there's so much great content as well as not great content, but there's so much content being produced every single day, right? Like we're producing more film and TV and everything. And that's even before you get to like TikTok and gaming content and all that sort of stuff. But there's more being created every day than any of us can consume. And all of our watch lists are way longer. I know there's stuff I'm never going to see in my watch list because it's just being produced faster than I can watch it.
mm,
And that's the reality that we live in. And so it does two things. One is it puts so much power in the hands of the distributor because if you think of movie making as a market that has sellers, the people that make movies and try and sell them, and buyers, which are the distributors that look at movies and pick the best ones, it's a total buyer's market. And there's a lot of very high quality films that don't get distribution or don't get good distribution. And
mhm.
so, but the other challenge is once you come to distribute a movie, like it's a big risk. It's harder than ever to get people out to the theater because there's so many great options to watch at home. And so that's why there's a real art, I think, to choosing the right movies. And I think there's also an art to, like you said, to how you market them because it's so difficult. A lot of times you're releasing this movie, it could be an amazing movie, but if you've got $2 million of P&A or $4 million of P&A, it sounds like a lot of money, but that's nothing for what is effectively a nationwide new product launch. You have
Oh
to
yeah.
introduce your movie to 300 million people across America, and the studios solve it by they're not going to spend $2 million or $4 million. They're going to spend $100 million or $200 million, and they're going to make sure that every single person on the planet, or at least in the United States, knows that this movie is coming out. And once you've done that, once you've everybody is aware of it, then it's a question of like, do people choose to see it or not? When they see it, do they like it and do they tell their friends? But when you're at the indie level, like we are, if my dead friend Zoe, the movie that Legion M, we won the audience award at South by Southwest. It's 95% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's literally one of the best reviewed movies of Morgan Freeman's career. It's a
Great
movie
movie.
that I have been in dozens of screenings, and I know confidently people like this movie. 95% of people like it, and a smaller percentage, but still really big, love it. But if I go out and pick 100 random people, 95% of them have never heard of the movie. They don't
True.
know that it exists. And that's the fundamental challenge, is that when you've got such a limited amount of money, it's so hard to break through the noise of everything that's out there.
But that's what y'all are getting better and better by the year at doing. So,
Yes. Well,
like if you
and
want to,
and for Legion M, we're leveling up to bigger projects. We're getting better and better. And again, it just means that a company owned by fans that has the ability to build organic grassroots buzz is more valuable than it's ever been, frankly. I mean, the whole industry is consolidating. We're getting fewer and fewer studios, and they're becoming bigger and bigger conglomerates. And
yeah,
what we watch is driven by algorithms and AI. But at the end of the day, there's one fundamental truth, which is the audience holds all the power. It's you and me and all of us that buy the tickets and decide what to watch. We are the ones that fuel these massive $1 trillion, well, $100 billion organizations, and media companies. And so when we unite, it's not that we can impact the industry. It's like we literally are the industry. And so the bigger Legion M gets, we're at a point after 10 years that I think we're impossible to ignore. But honestly, if we can continue our momentum, if we can continue to grow, I think at some point, and not too far off, we're going to be impossible to stop.
Jeff, this has been really fascinating. Is there anything you want to add before we end this wonderful conversation?
No, other than
No?
just come check out Legion M. You can join for free if you don't want to invest and get a chance to know us, um, and uh, and clear the month of August because Nimrods comes out August 14th, and then we've got another movie that we're going to be announcing soon that's super super cool that comes out a little bit later.
Ooh, you'll tell me after we stop recording, right?
100%.
Yeah, so don't be an American idiot full of dookie. Go check out like what's already out there about Nimrods and say that does in fact look like a really cool movie. That's the only two Green Day albums I can think of. Sorry.
Well done, well done, Chris.
And go something I want to be a part of. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Always.